you have eternal life? Mm. So search the scriptures for in them you think you have eternal life, and there they was testifying me, and you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men. If I know you, that you have not the love of Allah in you, I come out of his name, you receive me not. Another shall trust. Had you believed Moses, you would have believed me. Proverbs 27:18. Whoso keep the fig tree shall eat the fruit thereof. What else? We also have a hay here at the end of this for some reason. And nevertheless, of course, that is a fig tree or the fruit. So you look at the strength, or that matter of fact, that Yahoo is the covenant of life, and therefore you keep said fig tree. And if you wait upon your master, which is Shamar, which is to guard and observe, he will honor you. That's what we're going to sit back and look at, as those who wait upon their master. Not going to probably be here long, not going to be too deep with it, but we will begin. After that, what do we want things? I think we talked about this not too long ago. I want to do this here because of the aspect of waiting on the master, and that the Tahan, Solomon 2:1. I am the rose of Sharon and the lily. So is my beloved among the sons. Sat down under his shadow with great delight, and his fruit, what we came here for, was banqueting. He brought me to the banqueting house. God noon. So we can see that Yahusha's worship is everlasting life, or those who worship Yahusha are born of his. But why did we come here? It said those who keep the fig tree, which is Yahusha is the covenant of life. They will is he that keeps the banqueting house or the house of wine. Let's go to Matthew 26. My goal this week is 3 separate verses in Proverbs that we will go through. Now, whether that is accomplished or not, it's another matter. Of course, y'all know what we're going to read in Matthew 26 and 26. It's just for the stage. Break it, gave it to the disciples, and said, take, eat, this is my body. He took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, drink you all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. So he had the Psalms, Proverbs, 27 and 18. If you keep the fig tree or you guard and observe it, you can eat the fruit thereof. I want you to pay attention to that. Look over it one quick time. I'm trying to see who I want. What's in Isaiah 21? No, I don't want to use that. When we're looking at this here, right, you want to keep the fig. I'm going to Mark 13, I believe. Mark 13 after that, and Luke chapter 12. But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all of heaven shall fall, and the powers out of heaven shall be shaken. But in those days that after the tribulation, the sun shall be dark, and the moon shall not give her light. The stars of heaven shall fall, the powers out of heaven shall be shaken. From the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and put forth her leaves, you know that summer is near. Now, again, we're talking about the fig tree, and that's what some of our focus is going to be, is in certain places that are regarding the fig tree, because it says if you keep the fig tree, you are that they may be honored. Now, of course, we're also dealing with, in this regard, what we just seen in Songs of Solomon about he brought me to the banqueting house and his banner over me was love. Now, I want you to understand what this word banner is, because I meant to mention that the first time, but I'll do it now. It is the gall. It's a banner or a standard or a flag. So the flag over this woman is love when she goes into the house of wine. Now she's going into the house of wine because he that waits upon his master shall be honored because you kept the fig tree. So you've got Dalit, Gamal, and Lamad here for this word Gal. So you understand that the shepherd is the messenger of Elohim and therefore was hung or sacrificed. This is how you understand that it is love. I just want y'all to keep that in the forefront of your mind because we're talking about to go look at it now. Because it said, if you know the parable of the fig tree, you know that summer is near. So I want you to look at verse 29 in Mark 13. So you in like manner, when you shall see all these things come to pass, know that it is near and even at the doors. So he's letting you know that when you see this fig tree produces fruit, you know that it is now, at the bare minimum, Abib, or the beginning of the year. You know that summer is upon you. I want you to return back to Songs of Solomon, chapter 2, because I'm going to have to cycle through some more verses to get to what I desire. Because we went through Songs of Solomon, chapter 2, not too long ago, but there's some specific things here that I wish to use. For I am sick of love. If you don't know what a flagon is, give it a pause. Is this thing tripping? A flagon, if you know that it's used to something that you contain wine. But the text, the word is ash isha, which really is meaning it is a raisin cake used in sacrificial feasts. So if it is a raisin cake, we're looking at this in the regard of not a flagon of wine as forth is drinking, but a raisin cake, or you're asking for his body to remain with you. You just read in Matthew 26, he said, take, eat, this is my body. So he gave raisin cake or a flagon. The grapes. So all raisins are grapes. So they're asking for the body to stay. Because did the apostles want him to depart from them? No, they did not. No one wanted him to depart. And this is what you're asking. So why is that important? Because you could go read in Psalm 51 when David mentioned, I've transgressed against you. Please do not remove from me your Ruach HaKadosh, or stay with me. Most of us don't understand the aspect of cleaving close to Yahuwah. And why do we not understand that? It's a simple matter. I was talking to one of our brothers last night. And when I was referring to, I'm not talking about the details of the conversation, but the overview. And the overview was why I mentioned what y'all know is why individuals need psychological counsel to understand how it affects your decision making and your interaction with other people. Interactions with other people. Because now he made a statement of how Black people view this. Ain't this thing tripping? Yeah, that's already off. No, I'm saying I already cut off the Wi-Fi off my phone, but it keeps and reading unstable. Now, one thing that I know is the number one reason why people don't like to go to psychological counseling is you have to do the one thing that the majority of human beings don't like to do, and that is to confront issues, matters, and events. And there's a multitude of reasons why people don't like to do them. It causes a large amount of trepidation. It could be fear. It could be 99.9% of the time it's fear, because you don't want to revisit the sadness because you have repressed it and pushed it away and made yourself believe that you have dealt with this, but it all logical psychoses in your brain, which means that you are at the liberty of anyone. When you have triggers, you are at the liberty of anyone at any given time, whether they know your triggers or not, because there's nothing anyone can say or do that can set you off. See, but we don't want to deal with that. If we say that we are grown, functional adults before we even talk about we're a spiritual creature or being, you shouldn't have any triggers. If you have a trigger, that means you need counseling, because that means that That means, and that doesn't just necessarily like it's like psychological counseling. That means you have to discuss with people, why are you triggered? See, people put this stuff out there on the internet, but they don't want to focus with it. A trigger is a response to a trauma. It is a response to a negative event. And you respond that way because you don't know how to properly process your thoughts and emotions in regard to the event that caused the fissure in your mind to begin with. You know what I'm saying? So you have to understand that. Because a lot of the things that we do is related into things that happen to you, the wisdom and understanding beneficial to whomever they come across in their life. But see that, and it goes to fear because you don't want to confront it. Because when you got to confront it, you're going to have to deal with things you don't want to. This is important. This is part of the reason why the people confess their sins, because you had to confront things that you didn't want to confront. You have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. And the trait, we're not allowing it to work. Which I have told you in the past, you're going to pass it down to your offspring because you're going to teach them the same thing. When we look at our people as a whole, male or female, our people are highly emotional. And this doesn't necessarily mean, when I'm going to mention what I mentioned, dealing with other people, we have very poor conflict resolution skills. And when I say conflict, I ain't even always talking about conflict between you and another person. I'm talking about you're dealing with conflict in life and having the ability to come up with something to resolve that in the most efficient and least painful way possible, which causes us to make a multitude of bad decisions over and over again to the detriment of the people as a whole. And we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to talk about that because we would rather live in a delusion of talking about how great we are. I don't know how we can sit back and understand that you've been under a certain type of subjugation for an extended period of time and think you don't have problems. I'm mentioning all of this because of the game that they are running with this prince and his wife. And if you paid attention, it was ironic that they ran this story a day after Coming to America 2 came out, which was almost running parallel to the narrative that was going on with that. And what was going along with that was, number one, to shun worship for love, which is the most asinine, retarded thing you could ever do. Because your own God tell you that it is not wise for kings to give their strength unto women. So people are, he stood up for his queen. He's a jackass. You don't forsake royalty for a woman. You're a fool. That is foolish. You know what I'm saying? And they were showing you that you weren't fit to rule and only your woman could rule. And that it was better for you to abdicate rule to a woman than to pass it to your firstborn son, who's his right and heir to sit on the throne after you. Looking at that film with a discriminatory eye, I just seen that and was disgusted. Because they were telling you that you were incapable of rulership. How can you be a king and your woman put you out your own chamber? And you pull that? What king is going to do that? And I'm telling you this, black man, because that's how they see how you fit to rule. They don't feel like you can rule. They don't feel like you're fit to rule. And they want to make sure that the world knows that you aren't fit to rule and that you stay in your place and that you don't never move up and try to rule and to sit back and say, for you to identify, oh, they raised what they're trying to push upon you with Meghan Markle and her husband, is for you to have the mentality of a victim. But you had a man who sat back and said that the banner that he's going to set over you is love. He does not want you to be in a perpetual state of a victim. You are not a victim. So you placed yourself in this position to be subjugated, oppressed, and depressed. Nevertheless, once you begin to take their children or strangers, he said strangers, he said, and the children are free, he would let them know you're not a victim. You're not a victim. Stop around like that. It's embarrassing. Because if we teach it to our sons, they repeat it. Let me show you this Matthew 17, what I'm referring to, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Matthew 17 and 24. I didn't want you to see how you were trying to tell Peter that you're not a victim. It's just like we were talking about this the other day. I don't wear a mask anyway, what the master said, unless I offend them, let me get them some money for their taxes. See, we ain't got no wisdom because you're acting, because again, that's your trauma response, acting like a woman, being emotional, not knowing how to resolve conflict, because you feel the way to resolve conflict is to get aggressive, or is to fight, or to exert that I can do what I want. That's feminine, that's childish. Men don't do that. Rulers don't do that. If I was his daddy, I would tell this whole nigga, don't you ever mention my name. Because you have the nerve to denounce your bloodline, a royal bloodline, or a hoe, and still want to reap the benefits of royalty. That's disrespect to your forefathers. And you sit there and you let that pause in your mind if you understand what I just said. Because that's what we do. You want to run to the world, you want to run to the nations, you want to run and do all this here and renounce your bloodline and your position in royalty, but you want the benefits of that covenant. Can't do it. That's disrespect. What father would accept that? Well, whole nigga, if you want to be with this hoe, then you could go be with her. But I'm not, you ain't finna butter your bread and disrespect me in the same token, son. That's what you not gonna do. But see, if you say that, how could you say that's what rulership is? That's what a ruling type of mind is. I support my son in anything he do. No, you're dishonoring the family. I'm not supporting you and dishonoring me. I'm not doing it. We think that's cool because you want to stay a victim. Maybe you complain about people you know don't like you. Or are you going to take control of your physical existence through your master Yahushua and do something macro level until you begin to do things on the micro level? And that begins in your house, among your friends, in your family. That's where it started at. We just wanted to all of a sudden just start mad. I see the same thing now with niggas talking about, oh, these niggas selling out because they sold their businesses. And I had to tell them, bro, I said, let me tell you something, man. I know you niggas don't run no businesses. And or at least study people who run businesses, because anybody who knows, most Caucasians will not sell their companies to people of another race. Usually. You know what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with that kind of money, it ain't too many black folks who got that kind of money for these guys to sell their businesses to. Now, individuals was upset because Swiss Beats and Timberland sold. This was something that was started because of a lockdown from a pandemic. Do you really think people that's going to be able to sustain an urban market for 30 years to listen to two artists battle each other? Or would you cash out and take some majorities in a company and own it and rule it for the artists who you put on? Oh, but we got to have black ownership to something that won't be worth anything in 10 years. But a nigga tell you to earn more resources in another fashion. But we screaming we hustlers and CEOs, but you think like a pauper, a worker, because you believe that all these brands and companies you see, that the families who founded them still own it. And they don't, family. They've been sold Hennessy. And they have a fragrance brand called Killian. And they have a fragrance brand called Killian. Sold that. Tom Ford sold all his fragrance brand. Don't own any of it. Of that family own shares of it, but they still have to answer to shareholders. See, we want to talk about things, but we haven't even taken the time to learn how to play the game so to know what these people are doing. These people don't hold on to stuff just to hold it. They use it to make money, to make more money, to make more money. They don't pass businesses down to each other per se. They pass down resources, which is what your master did. He passed down to you resources, the resources of everlasting life through the Ruach HaKodesh. We go back to what's in Proverbs. A father leaves an inheritance to his son's sons. There are very, because we looked this up yesterday, very few companies that are still owned by the original family who created them if that family is old, if that company is over 100 years old. Very few. Very few. They keep a person in that family as a figurehead on the board of directors. But these people been off that company. Been off it. Elon Musk has sold 95% of the companies he started. Doesn't own them. How you think Mark Cuban got rich? He has started a company. The stock price went up on it. He sold it. Have anything that's art? Who cares? But at the state of cable television right now, Bob Johnson would be lucky to get $300 million for BET, like what he got when he was 24. And when they would come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, "Do not your master pay tribute?" He said, "Yes." And when he was coming to the house, Yahushua prevented him, saying, "What think you, Simon? Why, of whom do kings of the earth take custom of tribute? Of their own children or of strangers?" Peter said unto them, "Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go you to the sea and cast a hook and take up a fish that first come up. And when he has opened his mouth, you shall find a piece of money. Take and give unto them for me and you," because he's letting them know you are not a victim, son. You have to, if you want to, see, we say we come from kings and queens, but you don't think like one. You're thinking like a slave, so they will treat you like one because you're going to operate like one. Because I said I was having a good discourse with a brother about this morning. He was like, "Well, why did Jay-Z sell Ace of Spades? So when do you think he was going to get $300 for some champagne that he started because somebody told him F you?" Which he bought from somebody else. And he bought title, which was worth nothing, from somebody else. Added value to it and sold it. That's what people do. It's what people do. This is why you stay behind, because you feel like you're supposed to hold on to stuff and thinking that the value in it is going to keep going up. It's only a few things in this earth that maintain that value increases. That's usually real property and gold. Outside of that, everything else is subjective because you have certain factors and parameters, and homes, mobile homes, multifamily property, whatever the case may be, and gold, precious metals. Those things usually don't lose value. Cash out. Well, you have the chance to cash out because you want to feel like generational. But I'm going to say, don't take my word for it. Look up most of these companies. Ray Kroc, the man who started McDonald's, his McDonald's no more. They've been sold. Image. His family anyway, because Colonel Sanders been dead. Been sold it. Because that's what their objective was. They didn't want to keep having to pay and operate no restaurant over a multitude of states. The family that owns Creed slid. They said, "I'd rather do that than to be sitting over here doing perfumery." But see, we don't have that thought process. This is what, and again, this is a mind of somebody who wants to rule. You don't have the mind of a ruler because you're going by cliches, generational wealth. You're just saying the stuff, and you're not actually studying how that is generated, how that is accrued, and what they do once they attain it. Because all generational wealth is the passing of assets to another generation. If you don't have assets, you don't have anything to pass. What good is it to pass a business to your kids that ain't worth nothing? What good is that? Can give that soul. And they can take that money and either build on whatever business, because most people who do that, they go start another business. See, if they're a serial entrepreneur. But that's another conversation. Come on back to Songs of Solomon. What I'm just talking about is the mentality and the perspective. You have to change your perspective on how you think, and then you'll see that these people are playing on your emotions. 2 and 6, the Songs of Solomon. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand do embrace me. I charge you with my. I could believe it. And he wasn't wrong. Sean just mentioned that dude named Melvin Nunnery. Let's see who he is. Showed the offshoot of his business to China for billions. No, they don't even own 50 because they sold the shares off.
So they own like
50.1. You got to own 50.1 to be considered a majority owner. What allowed Walmart to accrue? So this is what people want to tell you. Yes, they do not pay their workers. Let that be known. They have that IPO, that initial public offering, where you can buy stock in the company. That's where they get their money from. Indeed. Which is all up under that brand. Because when Sam Walton started it was just Sam Walton running a family business. It expanded. They went public. Majority owner. What they're not telling you is Jay-Z sold majority ownership and title. He still owns a percentage, just somebody else owns more, and he was able to get stock or stock or shares into Square so he can own that. That's what high-level businessmen do. You know that if you look at it and you study those things were interesting to me in my childhood. So that's why I'm aware of that. I noticed that's what they do. I noticed that pattern as a young man. Melvin Nunnery. Here's Melvin Nunnery. He was the CEO with that app. This is from 2019. It was a recruiting app. So people could market and promote themselves to university coaches in China, as well as university coaches in the US. And then he made a deal with these people, estimated at $1.4 billion within 20, like that. Now, don't get me wrong, it's good to own your own stuff. But when you get focused on just owning your own stuff at the expense of actually being profitable, you're a fool. 2:8. The voice of my beloved, behold, he come, leap upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a rower, a young hart. Behold, he stand behind our wall. He looked forth at the windows, showing himself through the lattice. My beloved spake and said unto me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of the singing birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. Now let's look at that. Of course, winter. I want you to look at that. That is Sasab. That is winter or the rainy season, or known as the dark season. Samak, Tau, and U. So you might want to grab hold and secure this covenant in this dark side. Why is that important? Of course, as you know, because we were talking about this in regard to the deep season, because he's telling you the winter is past. Now, come back to Mark 13. Come over here to verse 14. Like I say, man, me and the brother earlier, he talking about, well, why did Jay-Z sell Rockefeller and Rockaware? And I ain't even mentioned Jay, because I ain't never heard this nigga don't talk about it. But I definitely heard Damon Big say, oh, we plan from the Jump Street to sell that. Well, what people don't know is when they got the Def Jam distribution deal, they sold 50% of it to Def Jam. Def Jam had a 50% stake in the company, and they had a 50% stake. And when they sold Rockefeller, they sold the other 50%. That's what most people don't realize. That's what people do. That's what people do. It's only one thing you don't sell, because you can't sell it. And that's the word of Yahuwah. You can't sell that. You can't give that away. You can't cash out on that. You might feel like people are cashing out by taking tithes and doing the stuff that they're doing. But dang, Mark 13 and 14. But when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, let him read, him that read understand, and then let them that be in Yahuwah flee unto the mountain. Let him that is in the field not turn back again for to take up his garment. But woe unto them that are with child, and from the beginning of the creation which Elohim created unto this time, neither shall be. Except that the Lord has shortened those days, no flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he have chosen, he have shortened those days. But let me show you why this is important. I think it's John chapter 11 that I desire. That ain't what I want. Stay in my brain in a moment. Find it swiftly. John chapter 9. This is what it says. And Yahushua passed by and he saw a man which was blind from his birth. His disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Yahushua answered, Neither have this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of Elohim should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me, while it is the day. The night come when no man can work. As long as I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. So you got to understand something. When the beast takes over, it makes it winter, or AKA the dark season, because no man will be able to work. What does that mean? Yeah, you'll be able to do the work of Elohim, but you're going to be persecuted for it. Remember, he told you there'd be a famine in the land, things of that sort. So you have to look. Remember, he said the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. So you're looking at the Kalaf, the rain has stopped. The first thing you hear the rain is over and gone is you should go back and think about Noah. Let's go back and look at that, Genesis chapter 9. Rain has Genesis 8 and 1. Elohim remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle. I was also of the deep, and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. The waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated. The ark rested in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. The waters decreased continually until the 10th month, and in the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. Came to pass at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark which he made to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. So she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her unto him in the ark. He stayed yet other 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. The dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. He stayed yet another 7 days and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. It came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month and the first day of the month, the waters were dried off from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. What does that sound like? It sounds like winter is past and the rain is gone. Let me read that to you again. For lo, winter is past, the rain is over and gone. When the ark rested, it rested in the 7th month. That is winter. Just for those who are not aware, 8 and 22. Just so you know, matter of fact, I just read it all the way down. Oh, no, I didn't read it all the way down. That's a little too much. 8 and 20. You will smell the sweet savor. And Yahuwah said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite anymore every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, sees no fall. The first 6 months of the year are summer, and months 7 through 12 are winter. So when you see that resting on that ark in that 7th month, that's winter time. That's winter time. When you see it again, the waters will decrease continually. In the 10th month, that's winter time. So the waters decrease for 6 months. So that's why it says when the winter is over, the rain is gone. That part of Solomon is supposed to allow us that Yahuwah had made a covenant in the sky that he would not destroy everyone. Genesis 9. It's because we were talking about those raisin cakes. And what was the other one? The tahan for the fig tree. And that the banner they set off anymore by the waters of the flood, neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. Elohim said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow, I'll be seen in the cloud. For those of you who've been around long enough, you know that's the book of Ezekiel. I'll read it for those who don't know. And I'll remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. The bow shall of all flesh that is upon the earth. Elohim said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I've established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. Not only is it a token for him not to destroy, but it's a token of life. So let's come over here to Ezekiel chapter 1. Verse 25. And there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads. This is Ezekiel 1 and 25. He stood and let down their wings. Above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne and the appearance of sapphire stone. Upon the throne was the likeness of the appearance of the man above upon it. That should automatically take you to what? The Ark of the Covenant, which of course, you go read Revelation 6 and 15, and you see, hey man, let us flee from the face of the Lamb, and that sit upon the throne. What we were talking about last week, about him putting his enemies under his footstool. And I saw the color of amber as the appearance of fire round about within it, and the appearance of his loins even upward, from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw that was the appearance of, and it had brightness. He that know the law is cursed. When you know the law and you see these things, you be like, oh man, this stuff is simple. Again, this stuff is not deep. It's deep because it's the deep things of Elohim to understand how deep his love and the manifestation of his salvation is. But in regards to how we refer to deep, as this is just he has to make it easy for his children to know it and understand it. If you want children to understand something, you don't give them complex equations. You don't give them things hard to decipher. Things are only hard to decipher in a text because they have to be taught to children. He gave you the instruction to teach this word to your offspring. So why is he going to give something to you that will be hard for a 5-year-old to understand? A 7-year-old to understand? It's the pride of man's own heart and everything. That is a mental problem. Yahuwah does not have those problems. He imparts simple knowledge. As the appearance of a bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the esteem of Yahuwah. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. So the bow put in the sky was supposed to be reminiscent or an inkling into what? In the cloud of the day of rain, you over and on. Those who had rested in the ark of salvation can now step foot and find pasture and graze. And why are they able to do that? Because they grabbed hold to that fig tree and ate the fruit thereof. Therefore, because they waited on their master, they were honored. See, Noah waited on his master. Therefore, that's why Yahuwah could honor. But let's continue. This is definitely going to spill into Friday. Nevertheless, and verse 12, right? The flowers appear on the earth. The time of the singing birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. We just seen that with them doves. Let's look at the verse of the turtle, because you know that's a turtle dove and not an actual turtle. He said, now you can see that, because now what did the dove bring back? An olive branch. Bringing back forth of that which produced ointment or fruit. Indeed, all white garment. Indeed. This is the next thing, right? To put forth her green figs. What did that bring back? And the vines with the tender grape give a good smell. Now I want you to look at these green figs. Green figs is pod. Green fig, early fig. It's unripe. You got Paul, Pain, and Gamal, the words of the messenger. See, the words of the messenger have not necessarily brought forth that ripe fruit, but he say that vine give forth that tender grape, which is the simadar, which is what? A fully blossomed grape, something that is a bloom or fully ripe. You got Samak, you got Mean, you got Dalit, and you got Raj. So now you've grabbed hold to the Ruach or the self. This is how you're able to be a grape that has budded or blossomed and not be early, premature, if you would. See, a lot of us bring forth fruit prematurely or none at all. We're good in John 9. I need to finish Mark 13. Now, notice the key component with a lot of things is grabbing of hold, the sacrifice, the covenant. All these things are pertaining to the word because you're going to wait for the fulfilling of that word. Or what we read last week about you burying that word and treating it as a great treasure. Many people do not. The one thing that we don't want to feel like is that we have failed our Father, failed and dishonored him. The greatest way that we can dishonor him, the way that we dishonor him outside the lust of the flesh, is that we continually have the mind of a slave, but not a slave to Mashiach like Paul stated, because being a slave to Mashiach is to be commended. But we're a slave to the world and to a slave to the appearance and the machinations of the nation, because you're always complaining to them. As a man, you should never be complaining about racism. For what? Because if you're complaining about it, that means you have no intentions of doing anything about it. Makes no sense. Again, that's a feminine attribute. Women complain. And this is not the first time I done said that. Elohim himself doesn't like murmurers and complainers. This is one of the reasons why our women don't respect us, because you're not trying to solve any problems. You're complaining and begging for someone to treat you better. And anytime they do something that you don't like, you're saying, see, you're racist. You're being a victim. No one respects the victim, unfortunately. And I'm not talking about victim as forth as murder or rape or things egregious such as that. But no one respects the person who has the victim mentality, woe is me, perpetual failures. And then the women continually pick these perpetual failures. And then get upset and try to purport the stereotype that all black men are failures. Focus on things that I can't control. So that's why I told it. The first aspect of taking control of your life is to lay your life down for Mashiach and live for him. That's the first aspect of taking control of your life. Because as long as we live according to the flesh, we're living in chaos, which means we have no control of our life. So that's the first thing you have to do, is grab hold of Mashiach's garment, the hem of his garment, and hold on tight so you can take control of your life. After that, you sort that out as you see fit for your individual desires. Because I'm not going to tell every man go start a business. Everybody don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's an individual choice. So we have to learn to stop knocking people for individual choices. Everybody doesn't want the responsibility and burden concerned with yourself and your family. You're concerned with everyone who works for you. You have to be. If you're not fit to run a business. That's why a lot of women say that. A lot of women don't employ a lot of people in the businesses that they do. You're not a CEO and you're employing them, because these people can still be doing hair with or without your booth. So you're not giving someone a job. These people are not depending on you to pay them. So no, that doesn't count. I'm a makeup artist. No one works for you. You're selling weed. No one works for you. That's not sustaining. That's a solo mission. You can't even say you a CEO if your company's not even incorporated. That's how stupid we are, because we want to feel like we're doing something with self-appointed titles that mean absolutely nothing. If you're a CEO, that means you're a company that has over 1,000 employees. Because see, we don't even know that, or what's classified as a small business and what it's not. Once you reach a certain threshold of employees, you're no longer counted as a small business. How you a CEO with 2 niggas working for you? You're an owner-operator of doing little and trying to make it seem like it's a lot to make up for the trauma that you got going on the inside that you refuse to confront because you really feel worthless. So you see these people over here and you want to mimic them, but you're not mimicking them in mindset and action. Because most black people, you don't want to employ nobody because you don't want to be responsible for nobody. Since we talked about last week, you've opted out of the village. It's them, it's their family too. You got to have a care for them too. And most you don't want that burden and responsibility. That's no difference than somebody who preaching the word. You got to care about people, period, and their families too. And people don't want that. They don't care for that. Because all we want is to be out in front and project that I'm more than what I am. Most of us don't even know people who own a business that employ more than 500 people. Shoot, more than 100 people that you know personally. That was someone you know of. Most of us don't even know one person who employs over 100 people. See, we'll look at that and we'll call, and some people who are in those positions are very greedy. But that's, everybody doesn't want to do that. Some people are content. Why did I mention that? Because everybody who in this text, all them people didn't want to preach no word. All them people didn't want to labor. Them people wanted to do what Yahuwah instructed them to do and they to get their payment of everlasting life. They were fine with that. See, we're not fine with our lot and being content with that. And we have to deal with that. Let me finish this Mark 13, though, man. 13 to 29. I read 29. Did I read 29? I read it again. So you're like manner when you, but of that day and that hour, no man know, not the Malachim, which in Shamahim, neither the son, but Abba. Take you heed, watch, and pray, for you know not when the time is. The Son of Man is a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch or to guard, observe. Watch you therefore, for you know not when the master of the house come, at even, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and he find you sleeping. And I say unto you, I say unto all, watch or guard. Watch that fig tree, guard that fig tree. Be there to get it when it brings forth the fruit so you can benefit thereof. But we're not guarding it. See, that's a take root. That's a whole nother thing. Let me get this Luke 12. I'll get y'all out of here for the 12 and 35. Luke 12 and 35. Themselves like unto men that wait for their Lord when he returned from the wedding. Truly I say unto you that he shall gird himself and make them sit down to meat and will come forth and serve them. Look at the key thing. He say, blessed are his servants that are sitting back watching. See, Noah guarded and observed what Yahuwah told him to do. That's why when and that voice of that dove was heard in the land, that he could be able to get that good smell, which we already see, that sweet smelling savor when he offered that up upon that altar, or that sacrifice of Mashiach, all of us should emulate. But see, the point that I just want you to consistently revert your mind back to is the keynote verse, which is Proverbs 27 and 18. Whoso keep the fig tree shall eat the fruit thereof, so he that wait on his master shall be honored. What you've seen, what we just read in Luke 12, those are the people who kept or guarded the fig tree. They observed it. And because they observed the fig tree, and of course we'll deal with Mashiach being that fig tree, understanding that the fruit thereof is the fruits of the Ruach that come from that seed of that tree that was planted and sprouted and bring forth, and you guarded that. Therefore you guarded that word, which brought forth that fruit that you ate thereof, and you'll be honored that it's coming. But the key point of the whole matter we're dealing with is to guard and observe. Therefore, the banner that's over you is love, because you went into the banqueting house or the house of wine. Nevertheless, hallelujah for Yahushua the word. I appreciate y'all time. Bless y'all out the house of Elohim in the name of Yahushua. That's what we're talking about. We'll roll with that. Splice it and dice it if Yahuwah permits. Deal with it as such. And try to get as much understanding as we possibly can derive from it. So again, blessings out the house of Elohim in the name of Yahushua. I appreciate y'all time this evening. And Yahuwah willing till the next one.